It's Fist Bump Friday. I am here with Sarah Leeson-Klym, and we're here with Fist Bump Fern. We've been away for a couple of weeks. Fern went on vacation. It was in his contract, and we're back. He's rested, and we're ready to jump in and learn about what Sarah does. So Sarah Leeson-Klym from the Canadian Community Economic Development Network Manitoba chapter. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
So the acronym, we shorten it as CCEDNet and CCEDNet, and that'll become relevant later probably when we start plugging stuff as to where to find you and things. But why don't you tell me a bit about your background, tell us a bit about your background, and what does CCEDNet do?
Sure. So my background, I come from a mix of community development and arts and cultural management. So I started out after high school doing a year at an arts and cultural management program, and I thought I wanted to do that kind of work, like maybe work with a theater company or a dance company or something. But ended up doing my practicum with a beautiful place in Edmonton called the Nina Haggerty Center for the Arts that supports artists with developmental disabilities.
Nice.
And it's a really different model. It's not a rec program like a lot of kinds of programs that work with folks with disabilities. It's really focused on having those folks see themselves as working artists who come to the studio as a collaborative space, and they practice. They are practicing artists and professional artists who then show their work as well. So I spent a few months there. My job there was kind of like creating biographies for a lot of the artists. If they were starting to sell, they need some sort of artist bio as part of that.
Yeah.
And developing some back-end systems for them in their administrative wing, and was sort of blown away by the idea that you could do this art stuff and also make this massive impact in people's lives in a different way than just providing them with a nice space. Like, it was different than that. It was about changing those folks' identity and having them invest in a way that's different. And so I got really excited about that, and slowly but surely just got more and more interested in why there are some people who do well and why there are some people that struggle in our world. I wanted to understand that. I had a real keen interest in why that happens. And so I studied a mix of sociology and urban studies and politics at university, and really focused on how we create collective identities, why we understand ourselves to be Canadian or to be part of a particular group. And then looking at, often when we do that, it's kind of a problem. We get into that. We were talking about S&M, kind of get into that place of real S&M stuff. So what are the things we can do to try to counter that? And what are the things we can do to create a better way? And came to community economic development as a pragmatic, practical, tangible way that we can build things that work better and create collectives of people that work
better, like solving existing social environmental problems, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think also just create environments and structures and businesses and organizations that feel better for people. They treat people differently. They treat people as leaders in their own right, and as people who should have a say in how things get made, how things get changed, how things happen, and what happens in the end to money that gets made, or to the product that gets made, or to the stuff that happens. That as a worker, as a community member, you're supposed to be invested in a different way than just as a participant. Yeah,
so before we started recording here, we were talking about, it's pretty easy for any of us, whatever our particular inclinations or our pet peeves are, we can look around and we can identify problems, social, economic, etc. And it sounds like your work sits in the space of like developing alternatives. Like you're, call it a problem solver or a solution maker. I don't know if that's a thing, but is that like a fair description, broadly speaking, of the world of whether it's community economic development or the scope of your work, basically.
Yeah, I think. It's a really interesting mix of people who, often come from a place, they have very closely and critically identified problems they see, or maybe have experienced them. People who, come from marginalized backgrounds, maybe because of their ethnicity or the neighborhood they grew up in, or in Canada, having been an Indigenous person in this very complex, problematic thing we have. And want to make change. They want to see it happen, or they might feel like it's an imperative. Their life has to change. They need it to be better or to be different. And so they come from that place where they really understand what the problems are, but they don't want to just oppose the things that are bad. They also want to put their hands to the grindstone or their feet to the floor or whatever the saying
boots on the ground and all these things.
Yeah, it's like really kind of a head, hands, heart approach. That people are value oriented. They understand the solutions or the problems, but they want to really make an effort. They want to build something new. They want to try something different. See if they can make an alternative that's better than what they've experienced.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So how did you come to be at CCEDNet, and what does CCEDNet do in particular?
Well, I came to CCEDNet by fluke, basically. I was in university, and I knew a gal who was working at CCEDNet on our large conference, which I'll talk about. And she had to leave suddenly. And our old regional director before me, Brendan, said, "Okay, I understand, but you got to help me find someone to fill your spot." And she thought I might be interested, gave me a call, and I was still in the middle of school. I was doing a directed readings course, and I met with Brendan, and he said, "Great, do you want to start on Monday?" And I said, "No, I want to start in about 3 weeks." And he was like, "Ugh, okay." And so let me come in as I needed to, basically. And I was meant to be there for 3 months working on a conference, and by about 5 months, I was working on about 3 programs, and about 2 years in, I was working on a whole spread of about 5 program areas.
And that's how many years ago now?
It's about 6 years ago.
There you go.
It's about 3 years. 3 years into it, Brendan left, and I took on the director role.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, and CCEDNet's broadly what I know that since we've spoken and I'm familiar with the organization a bit. It does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So try to summarize it in a few words if you can.
Sure. So we're a network of other organizations and individuals that are doing community economic development in lots of different ways, and they lead our mandate. So they tell us over and over again to do basically 3 things. That those big 3 things end up being lots of different programs. Okay. It's basically to strengthen their work. So strengthening their work looks like workshops and training and information brokering kind of stuff, research. We have a great program called Spark that matches people in the professional world with community organizations.
Coming soon on a Fist Bump Friday near you, by the way.
Yeah,
go on.
Awesome. So that's all about strengthening the work, making the work better, developing the practice, figuring out how to do it really well. And there's voice. We talk about voice a lot. And voice for me is about the idea that when we all work together and we talk to each other and then we turn our attention outwards and talk to the public in a really big way, we amplify our effort in a way we could never do if it's just me talking or if it's just one of our member organizations talking. When we go with the strength of the whole network to a high school or to our governments in particular, to the Chamber of Commerce maybe, or someone like that, when we go as a whole network and say there's this big range, it's 110 people and organizations across Manitoba doing really different things, they all believe in these things, it speaks with a power that you can't have on your own. So it's really about amplifying that collective voice and trying to make a change out there. And then the third kind of set is about connection. So people doing this work often have their heads down on one issue or in one community. It can be lonely work and it can be hard. They're pushing against the mainstream really, really hard. And so CCEDNet's also about bringing them together so they can learn from each other, so they can recognize that they're part of something bigger than they are, and so they can get connected to the resources and information and knowledge that they need to do their work well.
A couple things. One, what is community economic development? Like, I think when I first heard that term, it sounds fairly academic. Mm-hmm. Not in a bad way. It's just it can be hard to know specifically what that means. So how do you define community economic development?
Sure. I mean, we have a definition that you can go look at on our website that's also probably a little bit academic. So I think, from a really practical place, it's when a community, and community could be a demographic, like a group of people that are all newcomers, or it can be a geographic. I live in the West End. I'm part of the St. Matthews neighborhood. That's my community. But a community of some sort decides that there's a problem that they're facing or a gap in the economy, that they don't have what they need by the traditional economy, and they come together and say, how can we make it work? How can we fix this problem, fill this gap, create a thing that works better for us? And so they start to do that, and they form organizations, grassroots groups, cooperatives, businesses, nonprofit organizations that are focused on filling that gap and filling it from a place where the community is the leader of that. The community knows best what the experience is, what the problem is, and also probably knows what the solution is best. And so they create structures where the community is invested in that, and the actual activity doesn't matter quite as much as that community investment and the focus on fixing that problem or getting to an impact where things are better for everybody involved.
So you're telling me that community economic development is about developing solutions to economic problems in a community?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I probably could have pieced that together. I realized as you're talking, I'm like, oh, the 3 words are right there. I get it. So.
I also say sometimes, there's community developers and there's social workers, there's social justice advocates that do a lot of that kind of work. And don't always include the economy as a really important factor. And so that's one of the distinctions between, say, social work or charitable work or very strict kind of community development work. It really says the economy is, it's like the web that's part of all of this. It structures it. It changes the way we relate to each other. It changes the way we build in our cities. It's so important. Yeah. So let's take all those great things we've learned about social work, about caring for individuals and for communities, and let's inject a real understanding of the economy and look at how developing economic structures at work is just as important as people's psychosocial or their relationships or any of those kinds of things. Yeah,
no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So the 110 member organizations across Manitoba, largely, exclusively nonprofits? Largely, I guess. Not exclusively.
Yeah, I think out of that 110, probably about 3/4 are organizations. There's another quarter that are individuals.
Right.
So those folks might be teaching somewhere, they might be students, they might be in an organization that's not a member, but they like the work.
Yeah.
And then of the organizations, I'd say a majority are probably nonprofits. Another chunk are social enterprises. So they might still be structured as nonprofits, but they're operating a business of some kind.
Yeah.
There's a chunk that are cooperatives. There's a chunk that are like Change Wealth, are social purpose businesses. And then there's some institutional folks too. There's a couple of university departments over the years that have been members. There's a couple of government departments that have been members. So kind of from that other sort of public or institutional place as well. So it's a big range, really diverse, varied group of people.
So then CCEDNet is basically bringing all of this broad range of people and organizations together, like working for and with those organizations, right?
Yeah.
So just a big network. Like what I've learned about it is basically a big network of like problem solvers, more or less. Yeah. So just bring that up more or less for context. So, why did you choose this work? I mean, you could be doing anything. You're bright, you're accomplished. Why? I mean, you say you fell into it by fluke, but what do you get out of the work?
Yeah. I think it's really remarkable when people who, we were talking about this before the camera was on as well, that it's unusual to get people together who aren't doing the same kind of thing, but can understand that they are united by value and by what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
If the goal and the value are aligned, then you can work on the problem in a really different way and still see each other as part of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful, and I think it's something that is so counter to what we're seeing in the world around us that it's exciting. It's tangible, it's pragmatic. It's also just a lovely group of people who really care about each other and care about the world that they're working in.
Yeah.
Internally, I get to lead our staff team, and they are a group of people who are bright and committed and passionate. And my work really is about empowering them, giving them all the things that they need, creating the environment that my staff team needs to go out and really be leaders in each of their areas. And that work is extremely exciting. It's so cool to see how if you just give people what they need, really, they will shoot forward. They will surpass you. They will run ahead of you. They will become leaders in their own right faster than you can even imagine when you put those right conditions in place. And that's an example. That's what we do in our office, but it's also what our organizations are trying to do in their communities.
Yeah.
And it's thrilling to watch when you see somebody kind of go from new and unsure of themselves to just leaps and bounds ahead of you.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's clearly, you light up when you're describing this stuff, so there's a degree of fulfillment. And, I figured you'd answer somewhere along those lines, just because, like, this whole, what we're doing here with this little video series is to sort of celebrate the folks who are, passionate about helping others. But there's the common thread is that everybody who does any sort of work that helps others, like, tends to reap some sort of personal reward, like, in terms of fulfillment and stuff. So that's awesome to hear. Before we go, I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell us where we can find you. Do you have anything to plug? Tell the fine folks what they should be looking up after this.
Sure. Well, of course, we have a website. We actually have a number of websites because as a network, we kind of initiate or motivate new things as they happen. Okay. So our core one is a bit of a complicated URL.
We're going to put it right around here somewhere. Yeah.
So CCEDNet-RCDEC.ca. That's one of the complications.
Thanks for speaking slow for my benefit, because later I'm going to be like, what was that when we typing it out? Yeah.
That's one of the complications of working nationally is you need to have a bilingual name. So we've got an English and French acronym. Yeah. So that's our core website. To find the most important stuff happening in Manitoba, I would go to sparkwpg.ca. That's the Spark program. It's just in Winnipeg right now that connects professionals and community organizations.
Yeah.
And then a new initiative for us, we're kind of the hub for social enterprise support. So we have socialenterprisemanitoba.ca.
Yeah.
And probably the most exciting thing coming up in the next little while, every year we host a huge conference. We call it a conference. It's kind of a mixture between that and a bit of a family reunion or something.
Yeah.
So every October we do that. It's called the Gathering. We call it Manitoba's, or what's our little tagline? We're Manitoba's community builders, connect, learn, and celebrate. This is our 15th year, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it's a big deal. How do I sign up for that? I've been meaning to figure that out.
Yeah, so it's registration's going to go live September 1st or maybe next week, depending on, we got a couple of things to figure out.
Yeah.
So right away registration will go live, and so you can go to our website and then /MB Gathering, and all the information will be there. The registration will be up. We should have a list of workshops up right away. It's a really fun day. It's like a conference because there's workshops, but all those workshops are put on by local leaders. They're not speakers, they're not teachers, they're people who are doing the work, who want to come and talk about what they're doing and where their success is.
Yeah.
And then it's catered by local cooperatives and social enterprises.
Sweet.
So
and anyone's welcome at this?
Everyone's welcome. It's a pay what you can registration, so we have really small organizations bring their whole team, right up to, bureaucrats that we work with at government and people at institutions. So it's a real big range. It's about 500 or 600 people. It's one day in October. It's October 20th this year.
Yeah.
And it's 15 years, so it's also a bit of a chance for us to celebrate some strength and some stability.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, for sure. I don't know, I didn't prep you for this part specifically, but maybe you're aware this is about celebrating your contribution to the community. So kudos. Thanks for all that you do, and hopefully everybody has a chance to check out the things that Sarah mentioned. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks.